Mr. France, when I am back in my district and I talk to civic clubs in Kentucky and elsewhere, and when they find out that I'm involved in the energy policies of the United States government, inevitably this question comes up about Solyndra. It's almost becoming an example of many people's feeling of incompetence in government, and you know there's a lot of anger out in the public anyway about taxpayer dollars. And in your testimony, you indicated that protecting taxpayer dollars was one of the primary responsibilities that you feel as the acting director at the LPO program. And so I want to ask you some questions regarding this subordination issue. Now, Director of the OMB at that time, Jacob Lew, sent out this circular A-129 guidance document to executive departments, which basically prescribed policies and procedures for designing credit programs, including the loan guarantee program. And it specifically said the government's claims should not be subordinated to the claims of other creditors because subordination increases the risk of loss to the government and to taxpayers. Now, Circular A-129 would apply to DOE and the loan guarantee program, wouldn't it?
Yes, sir.
And since it does apply and it specifically says what it does, how did you all feel like that you could subordinate taxpayers to the interests of private investors?
Mr. Chairman, first, I'd answer your question in two parts very quickly. The first part is that the career civil service attorneys, both on our staff and the General Counsel's Office of the U.S. Department of Energy, made a determination in advising us that, in fact, it was legal for us to subordinate under the circumstances that we were confronted with the Solyndra project. So that is the fundamental decision that was taken. The other thing, the part two of my answer would be quickly that, as I indicated in my oral testimony, and this Congress has heard from another very senior expert, Herb Allison, this tool would only be used in extremist situations where we have a very distressed project. And the important point I tried to emphasize in my oral testimony was that, in fact, by doing it, it's the one last chance we have to, rather than liquidate.
Okay, so this was a distress
recovery.
This was a distress project, and you all subordinated in the hope that you could save the project. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
I might also say that in the language of the Energy Policy Act of 2005, it also strictly prohibited a subordination in that act itself. What did the lawyer say about that?
The determination, as I just indicated to you, Mr. Chairman, was that we acted perfectly legally within the requirements that were at hand and the law.
But do you feel like that is placing a priority of protecting the taxpayers of the U.S.?
We certainly do. As I indicated in my oral testimony to you, this is a last resort. This is not a tool that's taken lightly.
And how much money has been lost in the Solyndra case?
I don't have the figure right in front of me, but we can get that.
How much money did you all loan to them?
Roughly, it was, I don't remember the exact number, but for the record, I'll get it.
Was it like $538 million, or how much was it?
In that range, sir.
Well, oh, yeah. How much do we expect to recover?
527 was the number.
527. And how much do we expect to recover?
We don't have a determination yet. There's still a possibility. As you know, it is in bankruptcy, so it's being handled by a bank.
But we know the taxpayers will be paid back last, right?
Not necessarily last, but they're not going to. They will be first.
The private investors will be before the taxpayers, correct?
Pardon me?
The private investors will be paid back before the taxpayers.
I don't know the precedent, the order of precedence, but
that's the purpose of subordination.
It is.
Language. On DOE's website, they talk about jobs being created, and they said that Abound Solar would create about or save 1,200 jobs. So many would be created or saved by Solyndra and also by Beacon. And since all of them have not turned out as planned, it looks like a total in this 1705 project has been like 1,174 permanent jobs have been created. A total of loans have been made of $16 billion, which comes to $13,738,075 for every created job. Do you feel like that is a good return for the American taxpayer?
Mr. Chairman, I think you've got to think about that issue in context. From the industries I come from the major energy infrastructure industries. You have to remember that these industries, by definition, are capital intensive, not labor intensive. We have very few manufacturing plants, which are more labor intensive in our portfolio. The predominance of our portfolio and the objective really of the Act is to be creating large infrastructure utility scale projects. And by definition, they are not a multiplier for job creation.
So they're pretty risky, Ren, would you say?
We feel that just the opposite, Mr. Chairman, that solar energy generation projects are just the opposite. They have long-term
Well, let me just say the
agreements
record
to
shows
support.
quite clearly that taxpayers have lost a lot of money. You all have deliberately subordinated them to the private investors, and the jobs created are unbelievably expensive. And that's why we feel like that this program is a total failure.